Hey, ladies, welcome to the Calm Edge podcast. I'm your host, Brooke. Does it feel like your brain is stuck in overdrive, spiraling, scanning, second guessing, and keeping you up at night? The Calm Edge is what happens when you stop letting that voice run the show and start leading your life from grounded power. I'm a hypnotherapist, and I help women just like you rewire the subconscious patterns behind overthinking and self-doubt so you can feel calm, confident, and actually enjoy your life again. Let's dive in. Today on the Calm Edge podcast, I'm joined by Lynn Mull, a former Wall Street professional turned holistic career coach, author, and intuitive. With nearly 2 decades in finance and investments, Lynn now helps people align their energy with their goals without burning themselves out. We're diving into career transitions, intuition, and what success looks like when it actually feels good. Welcome on the Calm Edge podcast, Lynn.
Thank you so much, Brooke. Happy to be here.
So first, let's start with you spent 18 years on Wall Street. How in the world did you go from Wall Street to intuitive, holistic career coach?
It's been an amazing journey, and I believe that I followed the right breadcrumbs is the punchline, and I never stopped. I'm a continuous learner. So I'm always gobbling up like podcasts like these where I'm so interested in all these different modalities. And I want to be my best self, for my family, for everyone. And so I continued while in a very tough stretch working at Merrill Lynch Bank of America. And I've always been a hard worker. I think that's firstborn energy, that's Manny Gen energy, that's Sagittarius. Like I'll just cut right through it. There's so many reasons that I love working. I just do. And yet, in this very tough stretch, I started to feel like I was insane.
Mm.
Nothing was adding up. And I had been through personal hardships. So my mom being sick with cancer, my boss passing away, having
Mm.
2 kids, mothering while caregiving, while moving, getting married. All these things were sort of happening at the same time in my 30s. And I finally came up for breath thinking, I still have this amazing career. I'm getting promoted. My teams are getting larger. I'm getting more of a budget, on and on and on, all these things we want, quote unquote, air quotes. And I got to this place where I couldn't do it anymore. And it was a little different than pure burnout in the fact that I had a good thing. I really did. But the noise around the leadership was starting to close in. And it's making a whole lot of sense now because the CEO under which I worked when I had one of the hardest times in my career, he's now being sued left, right, and center at Citi. He's in the news constantly, not only sexual harassment, but workplace harassment. So
Wow.
Brooke, I felt crazy. And I
Yeah.
thought, but I'm not, because what I've been doing and who I am and all these things I know and regulations this and lawyers that, and I was keeping up with it all. And I couldn't understand why I was depressed at work.
Yeah.
I wasn't depressed at home. And so I followed the breadcrumbs into Reiki, into opening up my intuition. And holy smokes, it's gone so far now that I just did a medium reading yesterday. So it's really opened up so far.
How much do you think when you first went into that career, and yes, you're a hard worker and you enjoy working, but do you feel like some of that was belief systems that were imposed on you by cultural
Oh,
conditioning versus like you actually wanted to be there?
I was surrounded. I mean, I don't live that far from New York City. Or Philadelphia, and I was in San Francisco for almost a decade and lived all over the East Coast. I think the East Coast, different than the West, I can speak to that because I lived in both places, is that there's this concentration on work. It's
Hmm.
lessened a little bit, but in Manhattan, it's still like, well, what do you do? Who are you? And I was lucky that my conversations at the dinner table with my parents, especially my dad, was always about macroeconomics. My dad was trying to see the big picture. He was always drawing on napkins, charts, graphs. So I found finance an interesting topic. I still really do. And I do want women to have that ambition without burnout. I want them to make their own money and feel comfortable in that space. But there was this, I need this title.
Yeah.
And I was competing with my friends ultimately.
Yeah.
For what? For not.
I grew up in Baltimore, also on the East Coast, and I very much felt that. And I was an events director before I went into hypnotherapy and the healing arts. I was actually at a cancer research foundation, and they had a Reiki master come in to work with patients who were going through treatment. And that was also my first exposure to this
Little,
other
yeah.
world. So it's kind of, there's a lot of parallels as you're telling your story. But I think back now that I'm doing what I'm doing, and I never liked being in that. I kind of call it like that masculine energy, right?
Mm,
But I did it because I wanted to be a boss, and I wanted to be like a badass bitch, and like I wanted to have the title, and
yes.
like I'm doing all of the things, right? I mean, this is me speaking completely candidly about some of
Right.
the things that I thought I wanted when I was in my 20s and my 30s. And so I look back now, and it was never for me. My whole body was rejecting it, which is why I can't wait to talk to you about more of what you do with the somatics and how your body kind of
Mm,
rejects that. I mean, I ended up with high blood pressure at 31 in that
mm.
job. But it's interesting now. I feel that the healing arts, I'm finally embracing the softer feminine side.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that I don't work hard, but it's leaning into the cycles of being a woman versus doing it within the structure of that masculine world, the 9 to 5, how that world's kind of built.
We could take this in so many directions because I do think entrepreneurship can be hard too. It's like this hustle and hustle to the algorithm. And I just said to a friend, my dear friend, I said, I can't do it anymore. Like I don't understand these algorithms. I don't have a huge budget. And what I do know and what I've always known, to your point, is that I am not a superficial, let's talk about the weather. And that's why the BS of those first part of the conference calls or the first part of the Zoom meetings or the conference boardroom. And it was like, how was your weekend? When I know they didn't care. And I really wanted to go to coffee with someone and like,
Yeah.
how was it to have that baby and come back to work? How was it to, get demoted and get reorganized? I've always wanted that deep, deep one-on-one connection. I wanted to pull back the layers. And I think that's why from perfect strangers to my colleagues, I knew a lot about people because I had this open space to hold for other people.
Yeah.
But someone also did say that I type A wellness, and I do. Like I love the research, and that's where I do still sit in that masculine. My fear for the world really is that we lose our femininity as a whole as the year of the horse comes in. It's like, no, 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 no,
Mm.
no, no, no. My left side's just lighting up right now. We gotta like pull back. We gotta stay in all the learnings we just had. Year of the snake, the shedding, letting go of that hustle, letting go of that do, 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 do. Because as you and I know as moms, like the to-do list never ends. Never ends.
I feel that so much right now.
And so just let the to-do list be
Yeah.
as we navigate sharing our gifts. And I think the most fun thing is having those aha moments. I don't know about you, but I think that's what I crave no matter what space I'm in. It's
Yeah.
like that click.
I think you just kind of touched on something that I want you to expand on.
Mm.
The to-do list. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is actually pause and,
Oh,
right, and get
yes.
in touch with intuition. Can you tell me a little bit about that process, or what you teach your clients through leaning more into that feminine and not needing to do in
It's
order
not
to get
easy.
things done? Does that?
It's not easy. And there are days when that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
And that's a day like today when we're recording, right? We've been snowed in on the East Coast and we're getting it done. And I joke, where do the missing gloves and hats go with the missing shoes and socks? Because there's this pile of mismatch in our house. But in all seriousness, I think I call it practical spirituality.
Mm.
I want to go on an eat, pray, love roundabout, walkabout, and I can't. And I don't want to. I don't want to leave my family and have this awakening. So how do you have these miniature intuitive hits? The studies show, and you know too, that when you're in an optimized semi-hypnotic state, like watching TV, even driving a car, reading a book, and your mind starts to wander, you're activating not that fight, flight, freeze, you're activating the parasympathetic, the calm, the vagus nerve is my favorite nerve. If you can find it, it's the biggest one. It activates everything. So sometimes when I'm at a stoplight, it's the sigh. I have taught my entire family to sigh. So we're constantly taking these big inhales and these big exhales, exhaling, out longer. I just wash your face. Moments of, I have to do this anyway. And it's the
Ah,
way in which you stop and say, what do I really need now? As one of my yoga teachers always said, what do you need right now? What are you experiencing?
this is probably one of the most practical pieces of advice I've ever heard,
Mm,
especially for women like you and I who are doing a lot, whether you're running a business or working for someone else, you also have kids. So it's really about just being present for some of those moments. Like, I'm already washing my hands. How does it feel? The physiological sigh is one of my favorite ones. I'll tell a story from when I worked in an office and I started doing yoga and I started breathing for the first time in my life. I'd be
right.
in my office and I'd be like, ah. And we had this new employee, and he said to one of the other employees, "Is she okay?" And they were all laughing. They're like, "Oh, yeah, she's just taking a physiological sigh. Like, she's fine."
The humming, the buzzing,
Yeah.
anything, anything.
Yes. So it's really powerful and it's so simple. And it's something that anybody who's listening right now, no matter where you are, if you just stop and breathe into your belly, because most of us, what are we doing? We're breathing in our chest constantly. We're not breathing, essentially. Tiny little short breaths, right? So stop what you're doing right now and take that deep breath into your belly and really loud, ugly, audible exhale. Like, just do it. Let it be loud. Let it be weird.
Let it be loud, let it be weird.
So,
I'm
oh,
very into elements, so earth element, and it sounds people listening probably heard it, but the socks off, putting your feet down. If you can't do that, pretend if you're in an office, if you're in the car line, park the car. If you're about to go into yoga, if you don't know what to do, get off your phone before you go into Pilates. And I pretend I have heels on.
mm,
I'm too tall to ever wear heels, but then I flatten my foot and I lift up my toes. And it's like, okay, let's ground in it. Water is a lot easier, I think, for people. Or sometimes I just go stand out in the wind and I just say, you know what, let it go. I get the mail. I force myself in when I'm doing a grocery shop. I'm like, all right, just let this wind take that conversation away.
mm,
And we don't always, I think as women, we over explain, and the word authenticity has gotten confused with over speaking. No one needs to know this aha moment until you're ready. No one needs to know you've set up a boundary. Maybe you tell them, maybe you don't. A lot of what
mm.
the practicality is doing it for yourself
Yeah.
first.
Yeah. And I think that's a learning process, right? It's like these little decisions that become more comfortable in the nervous system because I think so many of us are taught safety means making sure everyone around us is
Oh,
happy first, right? So that's
right.
like a big one. Okay, so let me take it back here because I was kind of riffing with you for a little while,
Yeah,
just feeling the
that's what
vibe.
happened.
Um, you talk about living in the and, being ambitious and intuitive. Why do you think women feel like they have to choose one identity or the
Mm,
other? Or
it's a
do
great
you
way to,
feel that women feel that way?
I do. I do. I think it's the all or nothing. I work with a lot of powerful C-suite-esque breadwinning females or equal share in the household. And it's this feeling of the need, like a magnet pulling you to the next piece. And there's so much feminine intuition. You could go back to my favorite book that I reread last year, The Woman Who Runs with the Wolves, and just knowing that this ancestral knowledge of knowing what the babies need, knowing what the community needs, leaning into that. And so living in the and has become, because when I started doing Reiki, I noticed people's energy to be like a barbell, this weight, and you've got these huge pieces on the end. But what about the middle? And I was the queen of black and white thinking. Well, if I don't get the budget for this at work, then I'm done. Or if I don't respond to this email, they're going to fire me. And I hear a lot of my
Mm-mm.
clients talking like that. Taking that minute, what is true? And then leaning into that intuition. And I do believe now you and I are very open in this way, but I do believe we all have access to that, whether it's a gut, whether it's a sign, whether it's your third eye on your forehead. It's these little bits of information that I think a lot of us ignore because we're so ambitious. But I do think we can have both.
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of fear around if I don't keep doing what's going to happen. Like if I don't keep moving forward or pushing
Mm,
forward or checking everything off my list, what's going to happen? And belief systems that we can't be intuitive and also be ambitious. It's funny for me, I think the turning point when I actually really felt this in my bones is when I became pregnant. And
mm,
I was in the third year of my business, and things were just starting. It takes those first 2 years to really get things flowing and kicking into gear.
yes.
And it was like my business was finally flowing. People were finding me. I was booking out a couple months in advance, and then I got pregnant. And the whole first trimester, I mean, it was just not fun. I felt like I was stuck on a boat. My nausea was brutal. I was exhausted and
Yeah.
wouldn't change it for the world, but I was forced to just put it all down. And I, I, I let go of all the extra fluff and was like, I'm just going to show up for my clients. That's the only thing I'm going to worry
Yep.
about. I'm going to stop with the marketing. I'm going to calm down on the podcast. I'm just going to get rid of all the extra and just see my clients and start to lean more into that like creative energy, which when I was pregnant, I felt like a
Mm,
superwoman. I'm like, I'm a fucking shaman right now. Like
yeah.
I am literally bringing a life into the world. This is awesome. And so I really embraced that. And what was so interesting is my business, I stopped doing all the things and my business took off that year, like exploded.
Crazy. Right.
And that is because I literally was forced to. I had no other choice. Or maybe it was, did I feel that I finally had an excuse? I'm pregnant, I'm exhausted, I'm growing a life. It's okay if I don't
Right.
write another email for my e-blast. It's okay if I don't post on social media today.
Right.
But that was the aha moment for me. When I look back on that year, the less I did, the more my business grew. And I just got really intentional about where I was spending my
Exactly.
energy. And then my child was born. So that only got more intense of like getting really intentional with your time. And I'm really trying to live in that place right now. And that means last night at 5:30, my husband came in and the house was a wreck. There were two piles of laundry on the couch, toys everywhere. And I was like, honey, you got this. I'm going over to I have a membership to this longevity studio where I do my cold plunges and I could
You're
do
like, I
so much
need,
right now, but I'm just going to go lay on the Vemi bed, which is this PEMF machine. I'm just going to go lay and do my stuff because I know that is the most productive thing I could
yes.
do in that moment.
Yes. And for me, when I feel, I call it crunchy energy, right? It just feels like these pieces that don't align. For me, it's 24 hours and it's always been 24 hours, whether it was in the olden days, it was a business trip, just to reset. So I'll take myself to a hotel or I'll take a drive one day. I'll say, and for a while at the end of last year, I did Thursdays. I just did like creative Thursdays to do something
Ah,
like that, to find maybe that wellness thing I've been interested in, or get acupuncture, or go to a coffee shop and really sit and have this exploration, go visit another little town and read, to
mm,
allow the awareness to come in. I think the hustle, to go back, to circle back, is that the hustle now impacts our kids. So my kids are 10, my girls are 10 and 12. And I believe that this hustle culture of, for me, it's sports right now and pulling
yeah.
back, not being on so many teams, like giving your family space too, or permission to say, some of these coaches really get wild.
Yeah.
If you bench my kid for this week because we don't go to practice because we did something as a family, okay. Being
Yeah.
okay with those no's and creating space not only for you, but for your entire ecosystem. And maybe that's a date night for you and your husband, and that is the intent. But for me, I'm okay saying no. And it's taken a long time.
I am really glad that you're talking about this because it's something I actually have already started thinking about, even though I only have a 17-month-old. But I grew up in an athletic family. My dad was an athletic director and a coach,
Okay,
and
he's right. Yeah, you're right in it.
yeah, and my brother and sister and I were all athletes. And my sister ended up, she went to a Division I school, got a full scholarship because of lacrosse, but she ended up with knee surgery her second year in. And they basically said, do you want to be able to walk when you're 30 or do you want to play in lacrosse now? It's like, sports are an amazing,
I mean, I was too.
amazing, right?
I
But there
played,
is a little bit of the
yeah,
dark side of sports, right? Where
yeah,
it gets too intense and kids get burnout and, parents and coaches, everyone's trying to get their kid onto the best team. And what is it all for? It's really
right.
interesting you bringing that up as part of the hustle culture. I think a lot of moms are experiencing this right now. And then there's the aspect of like, I have to show up to every single game or else I'm not supporting my kid. That's where I get anxiety because I don't want to go sit at a baseball
No, you
game.
don't. You don't. And
I
I'm
hated that growing
I'm
up.
I'm back in the volleyball scene, but they're so much younger.
Yeah.
But if you take all of that on as a female and you're working, and I had another mom snap at me over text on a group chain with all the volleyballers, and I'm like, she is so stressed out.
Oh,
She word vomited all over this text about a little team building I was organizing, and I was totally chill. It was like a pizza party, right? They're going to braid each other's hair. They're 12. They're 12-year-old girls. And I thought to myself, she needs to come to my house for Reiki and
yeah.
energy healing while the kids are there. Like she's putting everything into her kids and nothing back into herself. And our batteries, your battery charges, well, you and I probably charge our batteries very similarly. But for anyone listening, if you want to go run, run. If you want to go sit in a sauna for 30 minutes, if you want to read and put your feet up, do those things for yourself as hard as it is. I have benefited and so has my family from those moments. Like how much did your husband, this interview, the baby, like how much did they benefit from you going and laying on the mat? Like
Yeah.
you can't even imagine who you would be if you were sitting there folding the it's just not worth it. It's not worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the belief shift that taking care of myself is actually taking care of my family.
Saying I need this space. And that's the moment where rather than I used to shout like I'm going crazy. And sometimes believe me, I still do, but it's like I'm going crazy. I need a break or this is terrible to, hey, this weekend I think I need to like go to my favorite yoga class. I know it's at an annoying time, but honey, can you manage that?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Mm.
that's when you articulate rather than the I hate
Yes.
everything, which
Yeah.
we if we
Every once in
do
a while,
and
yep. Still
you
saying,
gotta let it
still
ride.
comes out.
You gotta let it ride. But I don't, and this is where I sometimes feel like a contrarian, is that I do put myself first and I love my family. I love my kids. I love my clients, but sometimes like last year when I had back surgery, like I've got to get out of bed first. I've got to get to the physical therapy. I have to do acupuncture in order to be able to show up next year.
Yeah.
And I could have held all of the retreats I had planned. I could have, but I know now I can't hold space for anyone if I don't feel well.
Yeah. Mm.
And if I post another reel, I'm turning 50 at the end of this year. Like when I'm 80, am I going to be like, wow, that reel was so good. I'm so glad I posted it. No, like who cares? Who cares? I want to be connected to the right people because they find me, because we refer each other, because we hold each other, in an aligned way. And I believe that the hustle is the new
Yeah.
burnout, and it's not. We don't need to do
Yeah.
that.
So you work a lot with somatic signals. Let's talk about this. What are some of the body cues that a career or a role is no longer aligned before burnout hits? Because I think most of us just wait till we're like I did. I was like high blood pressure, 31 years old. I ended up in the ER with chest pains one night. And looking back, my body was just screaming at me, right?
Right.
But I couldn't hear it. I was,
No, no. Or for me, I used to say to my boss, "Hey, I was on the plane so much, and you're carrying the luggage, and you're putting in the overhead, and you got your before back laptop backpacks were cool. My one, but I'm just going to start charging you for massages because my back was so tweaked and my chiropractic." So I think it's muscle, it's the aches, it's the pains. Then we blame it on genetics, and we say, "Oh, my grandmother had arthritis, but you're 27." I think it's collapsing, fainting, it's migraines.
mm. I think a lot of people can relate to that, right? They're getting
The
migraines and they're like, I don't understand why. And then really it's okay, let's evaluate what's happening in
what's
your life.
happening.
Yeah.
And then we come at it again in my crew. It's the perimenopause. We blame a lot on perimenopause. It's the hormone shifts. It's the weird eating habits that kick in. It's the fatigue. For me, I'm a total pneumonia bronchitis. That was me. I would go, 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 merger teams, fly, 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 fly across different time zones every week. One time I went to Boston 3 weeks in a row for 48 hours, like on, off, on, just
Wow.
unacceptable. Unacceptable. Who allowed that? But it was a different time too. I think it's getting information and data. So for me, when I'm with a client, it's they come to me and they say, "Lynn, my back of my neck is really sore." And then I end up working on their root system. I end up working on their legs. I end up working at the micro chakras behind their ears and saying that there's someone influencing you you need to back away from. It's getting the blood work. It's getting data from any various practitioner to help you unwind the stress, and the body keeps score, that famous book. It
Mhm.
does. It really tells you.
Something that I see a lot with my clients, and I would imagine you probably see with yours, and I'm curious how you work with this,
Mm,
is, and I think I experienced this myself, um, is the disconnection to your body. There's no interoceptive awareness, the ability to even detect that you're stressed or tired or that there's something wrong
right.
in your body. And what I've found is over time, being able to get into that trance like state, you build that interoceptive awareness. And I think that comes from
Mm,
yoga. I'm sure it comes from Reiki. It comes from getting in the state of hypnosis, the trance like state. But I think as women, whether you're an athlete and you're told to push through the pain,
yes, we are.
or a lot of women at some point in their life have been physically assaulted, right? So the body shuts down and wants to dissociate, or for whatever reason, you don't want to be in your body. And I find that to be like a common thread among so many women, especially ambitious women who are out there like, go, 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 trying to get it all done, just kind of living out of their body and unaware that their body is sending them signals. How do you work with that
Mm.
with your clients? And do you see that?
It's a really great, it's a great visual, the disassociation, right? It's that unplugging, it's the cord that's broken. What I see so quickly in women, to your point, is I can see their energy. I see energy in tubes. A lot of people see it in circles. For me, it's like that old banking tube when the teller would suck it up. So I see it in all directions, like a globe of energy. And when it doesn't, it's like the tube has a cut in it or the tube starts to go crooked. I've seen people with their energy literally flipped upside down, root on head, head on. It doesn't work.
Wow.
So much trauma, to your point, a shocking amount of trauma. And
Mm.
having raising two girls, I'm like, how are we still here? What I can see so quickly when I tap into the process. I have an opening and a closing of a session in the energy healing. And what their guides come through to bolster is I find it to be very fast. because I'm trained, and they think it's like a lightning rod to have someone articulate what they have been ignoring or experiencing so quickly. It gives permission to be like, you know what? I do feel hardship, or my gut has been off, or that eating disorder where I destroyed my body for my, you know, late teens. I can feel that still in my hips, for example.
Mm.
And one way is to connect into that breath work, into get it moving, into working with some healer in order to get the connection back. Cord cutting, for example. We don't have to hold on to these stories. We don't have to hold on to the way of being. When I started doing Reiki, I got very far along. I had a really wild experience, which I haven't talked about, I don't think, on a podcast ever, but my first Reiki with Kelsey Patel, her book, Burning Bright is Beautiful. I said, I was speaking in tongues. And
Mm.
you come back from her attunements. I'm like, she's like, did anyone have a magical experience? I was like, I was literally speaking another language. And I had a vision of this ancient medicine woman come through. And it was so profound and clear that she and I were having this conversation that I could never go back to the way I was. And after that first attunement, people say, not did you get a facelift, but that kind of like, did you have work done? I
Yeah.
was like,
Cool.
no, I'm just this new energetic being who's sick of ignoring the BS that I've been fed by my culture at because I was still doing this while I was in banking. And it felt different. I showed up differently.
Yeah. That transition for you, kind of taking it back to your story when all of this happened. So you were still doing baking and you had that experience. Was it a slow transition? And how did that feel? Was it hard? Because you're working on Wall Street and then you're also like, oh, and I'm doing Reiki. I'm sure you were getting a lot of feedback. Was it difficult to make that transition?
Oh, for sure. I always called it coaching because I didn't,
Yeah.
and I was not overly public
Yeah.
about the Reiki part until I really left.
Yeah.
Because coaching is fine and you can talk about it. We all had coaches, we all had internal HR partners. So I sort of
Yeah.
slow played it, but it took 5 years for me to leave.
Yeah.
Financially, it took 5 years to get through certain vesting. I had to make, you have to make these good financial decisions too. And have my family in a position where the kids were a little bit older.
Yeah.
The I think the transition's hard because I was so in the other space mentally, physically, emotionally. And so I started calling it out when I had one-on-ones. I'd be like, can you believe they said that in that meeting to us? Or I can't believe that they degraded you in a group setting. I can't believe. And then I would have these more open conversations
Mm.
with people one-on-one. It's interesting you bring this up because I've been thinking a lot since the CEO has been in the news quite a lot recently. And I don't want to give him airtime, but this is the kind of culture. So the day I left, I technically retired. I was there so long and they gave me a necklace and I was calling my boss. I had sent in my laptop. My boss, I thought was a lovely, normal human being. And then as I'm leaving, I'm thanking him for the gift. Hey, I sent my laptop in. We're good here. Like today's my last day. And he said, I love you. I'm like, did I just hear that right? Like, we didn't have a brotherly sister relationship. So, what are we doing here? What sort of bizarre world am I
Yeah.
living in? To the point where I couldn't even respond. I was like, okay, bye. What just happened? And so, this energy vortex that all of this is allowed, and stepping away from a culture of people ignoring bad behavior,
Mm.
it was like ripping a band aid off. And I think that's too when the intuition started to really fly.
Wow. You telling that story brings up something for me that I haven't really talked much about
Mm,
publicly. But when I think back to the time that when I left the last job I was in, I was also coming out of a relationship that was very toxic. I had my
mm.
fair share of toxic relationships, that's why I love this work because I completely flipped it around and then eventually the partnership that I created is so different from anything that I was ever in before, which like it's living proof to the power of this work.
Mm,
But I was coming out of a toxic relationship and I realized, I remember it was the first time I started learning about what a narcissist was and gaslighting and all of that. I started like going down the rabbit hole. And I don't like to use those terms a lot because I also think when people show up with narcissism or that type of thing, it's like it's just a wound that they're living through. It's learned,
right.
it's patterns, right? But I started learning about it and then I realized it wasn't just the relationship I was in, it was everywhere around me. It was the chairman of the board of directors, it was my boss. And I, just this little people pleaser, was trying to please them all and being treated really poorly and just wanting to do such a good job and
Yeah,
was
me too.
and I remember when I decided to leave that job, when I told them I was leaving, and everyone's like, well, do you have anything else set up? Like, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? And it was like, nope, I don't. I'm going to figure it out. But this is how bad it is that I just am leaving without. And when I think back to that, it probably was financially not the best decision, but it also was the best decision I've ever made. It took a minute and then I eventually like went back to school for hypnotherapy and did all the other things. But that single choice is what I had to make. I literally just couldn't take it anymore. I had to step out. And, I think for a lot of women who are making transitions or realizing that they're in situations that aren't good for them, and then moving into like say healing arts position like this. I mean, I know even when I became a hypnotherapist, I chose my topic was, and I still work with some clients on their body and health and wellness, but I was focusing on weight loss because that made it feel a little bit more normal. Like I wasn't
Yep.
a hypnotherapist doing like the woo woo stuff. I was doing the science backed normal stuff. That kind of made it feel a little easier for me to say I'm a
Transition.
hypnotherapist.
Right. That's the coach in me. And oh my
Yes.
gosh, and so people will come to me and say, I want to start a business or I want to transition or I'm a breadwinner. I can't leave. And we end up, unpacking those wounds. That's why I call it the holistic piece. But I am like full on. That's what I said. I'm like, I'm coming out of the spiritual closet in the last year, just
Mm,
all of the ways that I can support anyone. And it's hard to define this work because it comes through me in clairaudience. I see symbols, signs, messages, and I don't walk around. You and I aren't like hypnotized. You're not hypnotizing someone that you're walking by at the grocery store,
yeah.
and I'm not connecting. I have a friend
Yeah.
she'll walk into a coffee shop and she'll get readings from all
Wow.
past spirits, and she's like, "Excuse me, barista, do you know your aunt's here with us?" And like I have to tap in and tap out. But
Yeah. Well, that's a
the,
lot. That I'm sure that's
yeah, no,
overwhelming. Yeah,
yeah, no, thank
talent.
God. Thank God. Anyway, I think every woman, whether they're in transition or not, or whether they've had a major milestone like a big birthday or a marriage or a birth or a divorce, no matter what, you owe it to yourself to clear and cleanse for whatever is supposed to come. Because if you and I hadn't made a transition, you wouldn't have had space to go to hypnotherapy school. And I wouldn't have had the year to have back surgery. Like I do believe a lot of that stress was my hysterectomy, was my tailbone removal. Like all of that, I do believe my mom's cancer was imbibed stress from her childhood. I don't still
Yeah.
don't know if my mom's ever dealt with it, but when I see the journey over the past 3.5 years, I know I probably could have gotten here sooner, but as we do, we go through what we need to go to be the better teachers, the better healers. And we just, we owe it to ourselves.
Yeah. Oh, wow. It's so potent, everything you're sharing today. I kind of
Mm,
want to shift a little bit because I was checking out your website earlier and I saw you talk about money archetypes.
mm.
I want to get into this. So you say money isn't just numbers, it's energy, habits, and mindset. Can you explain the money archetypes and how understanding them can actually shift someone's relationship with work and income?
So just as you and I go into a session and we think it's about weight loss or we think it's about a bad boyfriend or a bad relationship, we end up in my coaching, it is a lot of powerful, ambitious, motivated women who want to work, have to work, do work, all the ways in which we come at being part of our financial future for ourselves and our family. And as we start to unpack, and someone says to me, I want to start this side hustle, which eventually will become my full time. And then we sit back and I recognize we start talking about money, which I'm very comfortable with after years on Wall Street. It's like, how do you want to show up with your money? Are you living in abundance? Are you living in lack? Are you holding on for dear life? And so these patterns started to emerge. If you want, on my website, you can access a little quiz to show you which one of the archetypes you are. And some people are risk takers. I think of my brother and sister-in-law, they're the easiest example for me. They were completely fine. They lived in such confidence that they took a stack of credit cards and they launched a very successful product business in Arizona. Not everyone can handle
Yeah.
that amount of stress, but they lived in a knowing that they would figure it out. Then you have the other extreme of people who are holding so tightly that they're not living. And so energy becomes these stories, these ways in which we are, as adults, have to have money to pay the bills, the mortgage, all the house stuff, the vacations. But if you are stuck in a money story and your energy cannot move you through, you can't get to the side hustle. You can't get to um, the fiction book you're trying to write. There are practical ways to look at this, like get a third party to help you, but also you need to understand what your story is.
Hmm.
It's a shame that at the same time I'm starting to talk about this more vocally, is that the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills has the money queen. She has a name for herself, the money queen, and she talks about the energy of money. So giving it a little bit of a bad name, but in all honesty, I do believe you can move from a place of lack in its most simplest terms to a place of abundance. Cutting out the bullshit, cutting out the dopamine hits from shopping, cutting out the dopamine hits from holding your money so tight that you got the best deal, but you're living in misery and never take a day off. There are ways in which you can reset your financial energy to bring in not just money in the piggy bank, safety, security, confidence to make better decisions. Because when you sit in lack, it's very hard to get yourself to hypnotherapy school because you would still be in that money story of,
Hmm.
oh, the board of directors, he needs me.
Hmm.
Does he? What do I need? What does Brooke need?
Yeah. How do you guide women who, because I find there's this like, it actually is interesting to think about the money archetypes because then there's like the people who hold on and then the people who are the risk takers. But I think there can be a little bit of this like idea of abundance is like you set the vision and then you
Mm.
believe it. So you go out there and you spend the money on the $50,000 car because that's you're manifesting this, right? So there's like the difference between abundance mindset and also making smart decisions. Where is that line? Is it a practice to take some risk and then also you got to respect money, right?
So have to respect it. This is the purest practicality that I know is that you have to get so clear on what you need. You have to sit down and do the budget, even if it makes you cry, 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 cry. The first time I ever did a budget in my 20s, I was hysterical. I had no idea the cost of my life. And ignoring this as women, this is like where I get on my soapbox. Ignoring this as women does not help. You need to know where you are. It's that sign at the mall in the 90s. I am here.
Mhm.
And I don't actually believe in taking pure leaps. I don't believe in overspending and hoping it will come back without a plan. So you need a
Yeah.
plan. That could mean a friend, it could mean an accountant, it could mean an advisor. There's so many online fintech tools, but you have to get clear on where you are. Otherwise, you're
Yeah.
just bypassing. This is the
Yeah.
spiritual bypassing. This is creating your own stress hamster wheel. Because if you do buy the car you can't afford, let's say, or go on the vacation then you're going to be more stressed out. And then you're creating this loop of the universe is not supporting me when in
Mhm.
fact you do
And
have
the
to make
nervous
those adult
system being
decisions. Yeah.
dysregulated. Yeah. Well, and I think for a lot of women, nobody talked to us about money. Now, you have a different story, right?
Yes. Yes.
Very different story. But for me, I actually, there's a great organization called Dow Janes. Um,
Yes.
and years ago, I went through the Dow Janes program to learn how to know your numbers. So I love that you make that point. But I think a lot of women were not, nobody really talks to us about money growing up. And so it becomes kind of this thing that you avoid. I know that
It's a
was my
huge
experience.
avoidance. And
Um,
there is an archetype of avoidance. There's the archetype of the maverick who is going to buy the car no matter what.
right.
I haven't tried to match it up with astrology or human design. I probably should. But if there's like certain types, having the ability to at least recognize, just like your energy, just like your body, like this is where I am, this is what I'm experiencing, can help you have the confidence to make those decisions and see what's possible. Avoidance is Prince having $1 billion world and Prince dying without a will. That is, people having situations where they don't know that their husband is gambling on the side. Even
Yeah.
women I work with who make all of the money and have stay-at-home husbands, that's an extreme example, often give the money power to someone else. And so really, this
Mm.
is the hard part. This is the hard part, Brooke, is like you have to sit down and have a meeting about it with your spouse, with
Yeah.
yourself. So I have a meeting with myself once a month,
Money date. We have one of those too. I love
right?
it.
And once a quarter, we sit there and then we go out after, or we like purposely set aside time where we can treat ourselves to something afterwards so we don't kill each other in the meantime. I mean, it's not the easiest conversation for
Yeah.
anyone.
Making
It's
it
not.
pleasurable. Follow it with a
That's
glass
right.
of wine, right?
Right. I'm not afraid of a spicy margarita after a money talk.
And this is not to really go down this rabbit hole, but this is actually something I've seen a lot in my generation where it's like, I almost want to call it financial infidelity. Women not having the conversations and not being aware of what's happening financially. And then on both sides, making decisions or making purchases without talking to the other person or without telling the other person. I'm sorry, I said my generation. I don't think it's just my generation. I actually see this.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm at the point where I had kids in my late 30s, so they're empty nesters, and sometimes even older than me, older Gen Xers, like their husbands are passing away suddenly at the mailbox, having the heart attack, having the emergency, and they have
Yeah.
no idea what's happening. It's the landman where she had no idea that he didn't pay the oil rig fee or whatever it is. And that to me is ultimately scarier because you're walking into those appointments with no
Yeah.
knowledge if you can handle what the cards you've been dealt. It is any way you slice it, knowing what today looks like, what tomorrow, and what you agree upon is so important. And I think that is why centering on what you need and what your energy is and where your stories are around all of this because it's so easy to get into the money blame game,
Yeah.
the financial blame game. Well, you bought the surfboard and you bought the golf clubs and you went on this trip or you bought the fancy stroller, whatever the thing is to bring back to your energy so you're speaking for
What are your
yourself.
values? Like, what are you valuing? And
Yeah,
what do you actually need?
this is what makes me nervous, this is where I feel most comfortable, this is what would be more comfortable for me. And you can get down to dollars and cents, but sometimes it's that conversation of
Yeah.
what are we doing and do we need that third car or whatever
Yeah.
it's really hard to make a career transition or a lifestyle transition without knowing this. This is why this is part of my work and part of why people ultimately we start off with vision and values, just like you're saying in your work, what's so important. And then by the end, third, fourth session in a coaching container, it's like, well, what are the nuts and bolts here? What do you really need to make this transition? You need to know what's possible. And a lot of women that I work with are like, well, I can't do that. Like, you can't do that, or you just need to not take that spring break this year to get yourself situated. Or maybe you rent Aunt Sarah's house on the water on a lake, even though you'd rather be in Hawaii. It's these little choices that can bolster up a big choice that will give you that serenity of your nervous system,
Yes.
will give your brain something positive. I was at the point, and it sounds like you were too, that every email that came through for two people, when I saw their name in my inbox, I'd have like a mini heart attack.
Mm.
It just got so, I got so, I wasn't eating. I love drinking water. Like, I'm that girl who's always hydrated. I just stopped nourishing myself because their names lived in my inbox to the point where I was getting berated every 10 minutes for doing what? Nothing. I was doing nothing. I was people pleasing, but not enough. And that's this cycle. So to get out of those cycles, you need to know, that what is the blueprint of your finances?
Yeah. Wow. Know your numbers. I love that. Oh my goodness, we've already been talking for almost an hour. I was going to ask you this question, although you already shared so many tidbits already of what women can do right now
Mm,
to bring in some of that calm, get in touch with their intuition. But what is one habit that you're practicing personally right now that you would not miss?
I love to visualize. I love it. I loved it as an
Yes.
athlete. I love it, love it, love it. Call it meditation, call it what you want. So I'm
Yep.
a huge believer in Oracle decks. So this is my deck. I pull a
Uh-huh.
card. I'm a night owl, so I do this at night. Don't
Amazing.
ask me for my morning routines, okay, Brooke? I don't have them. I don't have them. But and then I just let myself have a moment. And it's these weekly, it's not every day anymore, but it's like a weekly, always on a new moon, always on a full moon. I really do the woo. I practice the woo. I have all my tools and I just play with them and I have
Yes.
some fun. And then I'm like, what did I notice? And like, I'll tell you, this week I'm supposed to reach out to my friend Jennifer in Boston, who's a friend, a client, I'm like, is she okay? So that's what I got in my meditation this
Yeah.
week. Call Jennifer, text Jennifer. And so there
Mm.
I did. So it might not always be about me. It might not be the thing for my business, or it might not be about my kids, but
Yeah.
I just get these divine downloads through the visualization. And sometimes I go on a wild ride. My brain takes me into a forest I've never been. And I
Oh.
have not been the same since I've started visualizing.
Well, you're talking to a hypnotherapist. I mean, imagery is life, right? It's our brains. That's how our brains learn. So I love that. And when you're visualizing regularly, that's when you're starting to train the brain to drop into that more intuitive place where you can get the intuitive hit, right? So it's a practice.
It's such a practice. But that's why IFS, internal family systems, work so quickly. That's why
Oh,
when I
yeah.
am in acupuncture, I always say I take a trip when I get acupuncture. So it's these places that I can more easily access because I'm having some fun with it. And it's no pressure,
Yeah.
no pressure. So if it's one time in the shower and one time in the car and one time at my beautiful window seat that
Yeah.
I'm on the fly because I'm a
Yeah.
working mom.
One, working with a healer is going to help you if it's not something that you regularly have in your practice right now, get guidance. Make it pleasurable. If it doesn't feel good to sit down and go on a visualization on your own, because I think a lot of us, I know for me, 10 years ago, I'd be like, what are you even talking about? Visualization?
Right?
What? Like a forest? Huh?
Right. I know.
It
Hey,
wouldn't mean anything to me. I would sit down and I'd be like, do, like I got to do this, I got to do that. Your brain's everywhere.
right.
And that's why I think you and I do what we do to help women kind of take their hand and walk them into that state so your brain can actually experience that level of calm and
Mm,
tap into that place where you can have your own forest or your own safe place within.
yeah.
I want to go back to one more thing. You mentioned your Oracle deck. So if you go to lynnmull.com and use code 10, TEN, you can get 10% off the 24
Yep.
Oracle deck, which by the way, also, I love that you mentioned this as like a daily practice. I've just started this in the last
Mm.
year and I am never there's nothing short of amazing since I started pulling cards. I have had my 17-month-old pull card and he always pulls the same card. Golden children.
Oh.
which it's kind of wild because I'm like, every single time he pulls the same one, I come out of the room and I'm like, honey, you're not going to believe it. Guess what card
You're
it
like
is again?
shuffling again.
Yeah.
You're like, I dare you.
And it just really, that's part of the fun. I found it to be kind of a fun way to play with the more spiritual side, my spirit guides, if you will. So,
100%. And I like Oracle. I mean, Oracle has no rules. So it's a great place to start. You can pull a card. My deck and a lot of decks have booklets. So I have ideas in there on how to work with it. I'll send you one, Brooke. I think that it's just about tapping in,
yeah.
tapping back into yourself. And there are times when we have to step out of ourselves, like when we're caregiving or just having a baby or feeling so sick from, being pregnant, but then coming back to that. Oracle I found to be very, very useful. And you could just hold the card and you could just look at the pictures. You don't have to read into this deeper meaning, or you can use it as a journal prompt. I just found it one of my first breadcrumbs was using a deck to say, like, well, what am I feeling? Or I'm having a really hard time with all of this pressure I'm under. So what can I do today? Which has then evolved obviously over time, but I still go back to the Oracle all the time.
Wow. So how can those who are listening work with you? You see clients virtually all over the country, right? All over the
I
world.
do. I can't even explain it. I do technically have an attunement for Reiki distance. I can't always explain it, except that energy is all around us.
Mm.
And I love in person or virtually. You can find me on lynnmull.com. There's a work with me page. I am actively on Substack if you want to get a taste of a little bit more about me and things that I've found in clients, or on Instagram _Lynn Mull. It's all my name.
I'll
Super
link to
easy.
all of this below so everyone can find you.
Yeah, virtually or in person, or I'm also having a lot of fun doing mini groups. So it's become like
Mm.
the new birthday gift is to gift mini group
Oh,
sessions. Yeah.
I love that idea. So a group of friends gets on? Like, is that how?
Yeah. I can't do more than 10 people at once or my synapses fire, like break. But I've had it where I can, as long as I know the names of the individuals there, and either you're all separate in a different place. I've done even, I have a bridal shower coming up
That's
where I'm
amazing.
doing it. So it's the new wellness vibe. Forget the shots of Jaeger. People are really trying to get calm before the babies come. And
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. Lynn, I think this is one of my favorite conversations that I've had on the
oh,
podcast. So thank you for that.
thank you so much for having me.
Learn how to calm an overactive mind and lead your life from grounded power. My one-on-one personalized hypno coaching experience is designed to help you rewire subconscious patterns so calm becomes your superpower. Click the link below to schedule a complimentary 30-minute consultation call and let's chat.